The first sign wasn't the screaming. It was the bells. At 2:17 a.m. on December 14th, and someone was ringing sleigh bells outside my bedroom window in Black Hollow, Montana, a town where the last horse-drawn sleigh rotted in the Historical Society's basement sometime during the Reagan administration. I pulled back the curtain. Nothing but snow and the streetlight across from my duplex, casting its orange glow over the perfectly maintained sidewalks of Maple Street. The bells stopped. Then they started again, closer, right outside my door now. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the police, when the sound just ended, like someone had pressed mute on the entire night. That's when I noticed the hoof prints in my driveway, impossibly large, still smoking in the December cold. The snow around them melted down to bare concrete. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, and when morning came, I learned that Melissa Hartford hadn't either, because Melissa Hartford was gone. Let me back up. Black Hollow isn't some backwoods nightmare waiting to happen. We're a college town, population 12,000, with a brew pub that makes its own kombucha, and a downtown that looks like it was designed by someone who really, really liked Hallmark movies. Every December, we do this thing called Good Deeds Week. 7 days of charity drives, food pantry donations, toy collections, and coat drives. The whole town turns out. Local news covers it. People post selfies with donation receipts. Last year, we raised $47,000 for the Children's Hospital. We're good people here. That's what everyone says. Melissa Hartford taught 3rd grade at Blackwood Elementary for 16 years. Blonde bob cut, cardigans with seasoned patterns. She organized the annual Christmas pageant and never raised her voice, not even when Tyler Hutchins glued his hand to his desk during the Thanksgiving play. She lived alone in a cute craftsman bungalow on Birch Street, the kind with a wreath on every window and those icicle lights that look classy instead of trashy. When she didn't show up for school that Thursday morning, the principal called her cell. Voicemail. Called her emergency contact. Nothing. Sent a welfare check to her house. The front door was unlocked. Melissa's car was in the garage. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, still plugged into the charger. Her bed looked slept in, but Melissa was gone. What they found instead, a set of iron chains wrapped around her bed frame so tight they'd warped the metal. The links were hot to the touch. They had to wait 3 hours before they could cut them off. And carved into her headboard, burned deep enough that the wood was still smoking, "I know what you taught them." The police said it was a home invasion, maybe a stalker. They interviewed her ex-boyfriend, her colleagues, her neighbors. Everyone said the same thing. Melissa was wonderful, sweet, patient, loved those kids like they were her own. By Friday afternoon, they were calling it a kidnapping and set up a tip line. By Friday night, 3 kids from her class were in the ER. None of them were physically hurt, but all 3 woke up screaming at the exact same time, 2:17 a.m. All three described the same thing. Something scratching at their windows, something with hooves, something that smelled like wet animal fur and burning metal. And when their parents checked the windows, they found the same thing I'd seen. Massive hoof prints in the snow, still smoking. The parents didn't report it. Well, not officially, but word spreads fast in a small town, especially when people are scared. That's when the Facebook posts started. Jessica Vance was the first to say something publicly. Jessica ran a wellness blog with 90,000 followers and a podcast called Nourish Your Light. She did sponsored posts for overpriced supplements and posted inspirational quotes over sunset photos. She also organized the Good Deeds Week kickoff event every year, turning it into this whole Instagram-ready spectacle with matching t-shirts and a hashtag. Saturday morning, she posted, "Does anyone else feel like something is wrong this year? Like energetically? DM me if you've noticed anything unusual." She got 200 messages in the first hour. By Saturday night, Jessica Vance stopped answering. Her boyfriend found her Sunday morning. She was alive, well, technically, sitting on the floor of her living room, staring at the fireplace. She hadn't moved in hours, hadn't even blinked, and she couldn't speak. Her vocal cords were fine, the doctors checked, but when she opened her mouth, nothing came out, not even air. The chains came later. They found them in her fireplace, buried in the ashes. Thick iron links, fused together by heat so intense it had cracked the brick. When they pulled them out, they were still warm. Jessica's laptop was open on the coffee table. Her last draft blog post was still on the screen. 10 ways to teach your kids resilience without being toxic. But someone had edited it, added a new line at the bottom in her own writing style, same font, same formatting. "I know what you taught them." Here's what made it worse. Jessica had a blog post scheduled to go live Monday morning, some inspirational thing about gratitude and abundance. It posted right on time at 6 a.m. Jessica, though, never wrote it. Her boyfriend checked. The post wasn't in her drafts folder, wasn't in her cloud backup, but there it was, live on her site, with her voice, her style, her usual sign-off. And her phone showed activity at 2:17 a.m. Sunday morning. She was already mute by then. Jessica's boyfriend called the police. The police called the FBI. The FBI said they'd send someone after Christmas. That's when people started to panic. I should probably tell you who I am. My name is Brianna Kemper. I'm 34, and I've been a guidance counselor at Black Hollow High School for 8 years. Before that, I taught English at Blackwood Elementary. Same school as Melissa Hartford, actually. We overlapped for 2 years before I moved up to the high school. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you because I need you to understand something. I'm one of the good ones. I've helped kids through divorces, through grief, through bullying and depression, and coming out to parents who didn't want to hear it. I've written recommendation letters at midnight and covered lunch costs out of my own pocket and stayed late to make sure someone got home safe. I care. I really, really do. But when Melissa disappeared, I didn't say anything. And when Jessica lost her voice, I kept quiet. Because deep down in that part of your brain that knows things before you're really ready to admit them, I knew exactly why they were taken. The third disappearance happened Monday morning. Daniel Cortez, 43 years old, Black Hollow PD, officer for 12 years, detective for 6, married, 2 kids, coached Little League. He ran the shop with a cop program every Christmas where local officers took underprivileged kids to buy presents with donated funds. Everyone loved Daniel. Everyone. They found him Tuesday afternoon, hanging upside down from the Christmas lights on Main Street, right in front of the courthouse. He was alive when they cut him down. Barely. His legs were shattered. Both of them, like something had grabbed his ankles and squeezed until the bones just splintered. The lights had been wrapped around him so tightly they'd burned through his jacket and into his skin, leaving patterns like brands. He was conscious and mumbling. The EMTs said he kept trying to say something over and over. When they finally got him stabilized, he confessed. Not to the press, well, not officially, but the story got out anyway because someone recorded it on their cell phone at the hospital. Daniel Cortez admitted that 6 years ago he'd covered up a case, a domestic violence call involving a prominent local family. The father had broken his daughter's wrist. The mother had called 911. Daniel showed up, took one look at who lived there, and made it go away. No report, no follow-up, no charges. The girl was 11. Daniel said he did it because he thought it was a one-time thing, because the father was a deacon at the church and a donor to the police union, because everyone makes mistakes, right? But it wasn't one time. The girl ran away at 16. Last anyone heard, she was in Seattle, working night shifts and not talking to anyone from Black Hollow. Daniel sobbed through the whole confession, said he was sorry, said he'd tried to make up for it by being good to the other kids. By the time he finished talking, the message was already carved into the courthouse doors. I know what you taught them. People were terrified now. The grocery stores sold out of deadbolts. The churches were packed. The mayor held an emergency town meeting and told everyone to stay calm, stay inside after dark, and report anything unusual. But nobody could agree on what unusual even meant anymore, because the bells were everywhere now. You'd hear them at random times, 3 p.m. during school, 9 a.m. at the coffee shop, midnight, 4:30 a.m., always distant, always just out of sight. And the hoof prints kept appearing. In parking lots, on rooftops, inside buildings that had been locked all night. The smell followed them, wet fur and burning metal. It clung to certain streets, certain houses. People started avoiding those areas without knowing why. The kids, though, They knew. They always knew first. I started noticing it at school. The younger ones, mostly freshmen and sophomores, would go quiet when they walked past certain classrooms. They'd stare at windows like they were waiting for something to appear. A few of them started drawing the same thing in the margins of their notebooks. A figure, tall, hunched, with antlers and lots of sharp teeth. When I asked one girl about it, she looked at me like I'd just asked her to explain gravity. "You don't see him yet?" she said. I didn't answer. She went back to her drawing. The next day, I saw a boy in my office doing the same sketch. Same proportions, same wrong angles. "What are you drawing?" I asked. He didn't look up. "He doesn't like when adults pretend," he said. Then he kept drawing. By Wednesday, people were starting to connect the dots. Melissa Hartford, Jessica Vance, Daniel Cortez, they weren't random. They had something in common. They all worked with kids, and they'd all done something they shouldn't have. Melissa Hartford used to lock students in the supply closet when they misbehaved. Not for long, just 10, 15 minutes, long enough to think about what they'd done. She called it a cooling off period. The school didn't know, the parents didn't know, but the kids knew. Jessica Vance had a son, 7 years old, adorable in photos, never appeared in her videos though. And if you followed her close enough, you'd notice she only talked about him in past tense. Turns out he lives with his father now, full custody, because Jessica's wellness routine involved locking the pantry, measuring his food to the gram, and posting before and after photos of his weight loss when he was 5. The court records were sealed, but people talk. And Daniel Cortez, he'd covered up more than one case. Turns out, when you started digging, there were at least 4 other incidents he'd made disappear, all involving kids, all involving families with money or influence. The pattern was obvious. But here's the thing about patterns in small towns. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. And once people started looking, they found more. A CPS worker who'd closed cases without home visits. A young pastor who'd been a little too handsy during mission trips. A pediatrician who prescribed sedatives like candy and never asked why parents needed their kids to sleep so much. People started whispering, accusing. Some of it was true, but some of it wasn't. But the fear was real, and fear makes people stupid. That's when the fires started. Thursday night, 3 houses burned. Nobody died, thank God. But the message was clear. Someone had spray painted the side of one of the houses before torching it. "He's coming for you next." The mayor tried to restore order, called in the state police, set up a curfew, but it was too late. The town was eating itself, and through it all, the bells kept ringing. I started to notice something about them, a pattern I couldn't quite articulate at first. The bells didn't ring when someone was taken. They seemed to ring when someone still had time. That realization hit me like cold water. All those times I'd heard them, all those moments when they seemed random and meaningless, they were warnings, chances, and I'd ignored every single one. Friday night, I was in my office at the school, catching up on paperwork when I should have been home. But I couldn't face going home. I couldn't face the silence of my apartment and the knowledge that I'd become exactly what I'd always promised myself I wouldn't be: complicit. 3 weeks ago, a student named Morgan had come to my office. Junior, quiet kid, good grades. She'd wanted to talk about Mr. Preston, her chemistry teacher. "He makes me uncomfortable," she said. Wouldn't elaborate, just that feeling, that instinct that something was off. I'd listened and nodded, and then I'd said the thing I'd been trained to never say. "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Mr. Preston's been here for 20 years. Maybe try talking to him directly first." Morgan had left and never came back. I'd told myself it was the right call, that I couldn't investigate every uncomfortable feeling, that Peterson was a good teacher, respected, and probably just awkward. But I'd known better. My gut had screamed at me to document it, to follow up, to at least tell someone, and I'd chosen comfort over truth. That's when I heard them, bells, right outside my window. I froze. The sound was close, closer than it had ever been before. I could hear the individual chimes, the slight metallic scrape of the strap they hung from. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then a voice, low, calm, and patient. "You've been waiting." I looked up. He was standing in the hallway outside my office. I don't know how he got in. The doors were locked and the alarm was set. But there he was. Krampus. He didn't look like the folklore drawings. No cartoon horns or fur suit. He was wrong in a way that made my brain skip like a scratched record. Too tall, joints bending in directions that they shouldn't. His face was shadow and movement, like something trying to hold a shape it didn't quite remember. But his eyes were clear, almost kind. "You're not like the others," he said. His voice sounded like stones grinding together. "You didn't hurt them. You didn't lie." I couldn't speak. He stepped closer. The smell hit me. Wet fur, burning metal, old blood. "But you were silent," he said, and silence taught them that safety was more important than truth. My throat unlocked. "I didn't know." "You knew." He tilted his head. "You all knew." He was right. I had known. Maybe not everything, but enough. I'd known that Melissa Hartford's classroom management was, well, aggressive. I'd known that Jessica Vance's son looked too thin in photos. I'd known that Daniel Cortez had a reputation for making things go away. I'd known, and I'd said nothing, because it wasn't my business, because I didn't want to cause trouble, because speaking up is hard and staying quiet is easy. Krampus leaned down, his face inches from mine. "You taught them that silence was safety," he said again. So they learned to hide, to perform, to lie with smiles. He straightened. I'm here to unteach that lesson. Then he handed me something, a piece of paper, a list. These are the names of everyone who stayed silent, he said, everyone who knew and did nothing. You have until Christmas Eve to decide. Decide what? Whether you will confess, he said, or whether I will teach the children myself. He turned and walked away, his hooves clicking on the tile floor. I looked down at the list. My name was on it. So were 40 others. I spent the next day trying to convince myself I was losing my mind. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe it was stress. Maybe someone was playing a sick prank. But Saturday night, the bells rang again, all over town, every house, every street, 2:17 a.m. And this time, the children started walking. Parents woke up to find their kids gone. Front doors wide open, footprints in the snow leading toward the woods at the edge of town. The police found them an hour later, all of them, standing in a clearing, perfectly still, staring at nothing. They wouldn't speak and wouldn't move, and their breath wasn't visible in the cold. The temperature was 12 degrees. You could see your breath from 100 yards away, but the children stood there, dozens of them with no vapor rising from their mouths or noses, like they weren't breathing at all. The bells rang in rhythm with their steps when the police finally got them moving. Every footfall, a soft chime, perfectly synchronized. The kids didn't remember walking, didn't remember leaving their beds. But when they finally came back to themselves, just as the sun crested the mountains, they all said the same thing. He's waiting for you to tell the truth. Sunday morning, I made my decision. I went to the church, not for the service, for the live stream setup they used for Good Deeds Week updates. I went live, no script, no plan. I confessed. I told them about Melissa Hartford, about the supply closet, about how I'd heard the rumors and done nothing. I told them about Jessica Vance, about the posts I'd seen, the comments I'd ignored. I told them about Daniel Cortez, about the whispers in the teacher's lounge, the cases that had vanished. I told them about Morgan and Mr. Preston, about choosing my comfort over her safety. And I told them about everyone else on the list, every name, every sin of silence. People tried to stop me, tried to shut down the stream, but I kept talking. When I finished, the church was silent. Then, from somewhere in the woods, I heard it. Bells. But this time, they were fading, like moving away. Christmas came and went. The disappearances stopped. The bells went silent. Krampus was gone. But he left something behind, a message carved into the welcome sign at the edge of town. Next year, I won't come alone. Someone tried to scratch it out on December 26th, used a chisel and a belt sander, spent 4 hours removing every trace of it. The next morning, it was back, deeper than before. The word alone had been carved 7 times, one on top of another, each cut deeper than the last. After that, nobody touched it. People tried to move on, tried to forget. By New Year's, most of them had convinced themselves it was mass hysteria, a gas leak, a shared delusion. But the kids knew better. 3 weeks later, I was back at school when one of my students, a sophomore named Emma, came to my office. She looked pale, hadn't been sleeping. "Ms. Kemper," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." She pulled out a piece of paper. Her hands were shaking. "If Krampus only comes for bad people?" She unfolded the paper. It was a list, just like the one he'd given me. But this one only had one name on it. Hers. "Why did he leave my name on the list?" I stared at her, at the paper, at the careful, deliberate handwriting that looked nothing like hers. "Emma," I said carefully, "what did you do?" She looked at me with those hollow eyes. "I didn't tell anyone," she whispered. The bells started ringing again that night. This was a special story I wanted to give you all as a holiday treat. You knew I had to put a dark twist on my story. I hope you enjoyed it. Krampus stories have intrigued me for some time, and I wanted to share this particular tale with you all. Leave a comment and let me know what you think. And until the next Dark Veil tale, have a frightfully fun day and amazing holiday season.